Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic. What are your thoughts on removing "In God We Trust" from American money? I would support removing it, but that is honestly the least of our concerns right now. Right. Also, I can't remember the last time I looked at a bill and read anything other than the number on it. You guys have money. It was an anti-communist thing from the 50s. Edit, needed to clean this up, add reference. Summary, you can't have a separation of church and state if God is your literal motto, and if your highest court of the land ignores the Constitution when their own personal religion is the topic. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution specifically says the following regarding religion: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The motto had appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War, c. 1864. The phrase "In God We Trust" is derived directly from the Bible. Psalms 56, "In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I will not be afraid. What can mortal man do to me?" This establishes a direct and clear link between the Bible, the religion it represents, and the government of the United States of America. At a Flag Day speech in 1954, U.S. President Eisenhower discussed why he had wanted to include "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. In this way we are reaffirming the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage and future. In this way we shall constantly strengthen those spiritual weapons which forever will be our country's most powerful resource in peace and war. In 1955 Congress passed a law replacing the U.S. motto, "E pluribus unum," with "In God We Trust," an explicit and intentional reference to the Christian God. This same law also added the phrase to our currency. A Christian, Scartus has upheld the constitutionality of the law, citing it as being about heritage, and thus totes cool. This represents an interesting note, as it's very clearly a violation of the Constitution, and yet Scartus has shown then, as now, how it will ignore the U.S. Constitution when the topic is an Abrahamic, specifically Christianity or Judaism, religion, the religions of every Scartus judge, ever. I like the original motto "E pluribus unum" better. At a time like this, "E pluribus unum" seems more relevant and needed. E pluribus anus. This guy is streets ahead. I'd be more interested in elected officials doing their jobs. In God we trust, because our leaders sure as fuck won't do shit to help us. Rant, but here we go, they are not our leaders, they are our public servants. You and I are the leaders. If more of us understood that, we would clean house a lot more often. Yeah, let's replace it with "Better spend me now, I'll be worth 9% less in a year." We should totally have financial tips printed right onto money. And randomize it so it's like loading screen tips or fortune cookies. A better idea is have advertising right on the money so we can make purchasing decisions while holding the cash. This is Reddit. It's pretty obvious the answer you're gonna get. Redditors of Reddit, do you think Roe v. Wade should have been overturned? Who cares about the Redditors of Reddit? I wanna hear from the non-Redditors of Reddit. The title might as well be "Hi Reddit, give me all the fucking karma." It shouldn't be there in the first place. After the RVW reversal last week, I'm pretty sure we're a theocracy now and it's here to stay. I refuse to accept this. I'd prefer they remove the God from political policies first. Separation of church and state are a thing for a reason. Edit, I have never received this many upvotes or an award or anything like this, so thank you all, and I'm really trying to answer the replies. I just wasn't expecting this to blow up. Edit 2, I am now at 1 Kelvin karma, I'm going to go eat a celebratory granola bar. Replace it with Wu-Tang Forever. Backside, CREM. Dollar bill ya too. It's not a hill I'd be willing to die on to remove it. I'd rather have codified abortion, or term limits for Scartus, or pretty much anything else. Lots more that takes precedence over a slogan, and that's basically what it is, these days. I just heard on NPR that for the next session, the Supreme Court could take on a case that will grant states unfettered ability to make their own election rules regardless of the state's own constitution. It'll allow unlimited gerrymandering, the ability to remove voting locations and times from certain areas, and decide how the votes are tapped and counted. Weighing in as conservative Christian, we shouldn't demand that be on the money. I know plenty of people who would get up in arms about the removal of the phrase, but by the same token they would be upset if it read "In Allah we trust" or "In Brahmin we trust." These same folks will argue about having their rights taken away, when the First Amendment to the Constitution explicitly states that the government has no authority to tell you who/what you should have religious faith in. I would be more than willing to bet if asked should the government promote Christianity they would say well of course. But if you asked them if we should repeal the First Amendment they would say well of course not. Christians are to submit to the governing authority. That means stop shitting on Biden, obey the law, and if you don't like it go through due process, voting and making your voice heard to your government via legal activities. Nowhere does the Bible say that we should attempt to become the governing authority and subjugate people under us. The only time we are excused from following the law is when it goes against biblical doctrine. For instance, if a law were put into place to force everyone to acknowledge a government official, let's say Biden, as divine. Edit, and to clarify that last comment, our faith would excuse us from following that imaginary law, but not from the legal consequences of disobeying the law. This was refreshing to read. Thanks for sharing your perspective. Thank you for taking the time to read it. Obviously, as a Christian, I would prefer people to come to Christ, but forcing them is not the way. We are supposed to plant seeds and nurture them in the hopes that they bear fruit. But at the end of the day sometimes the soil is not receptive and we shouldn't try to force it to be. It's possible to overwater your garden, after all. Unfortunately it seems like a lot of us feel pressured that we need to win people over, and that isn't the case. If someone doesn't want to hear what we are saying, repeating ourselves ad nauseum isn't going to make them suddenly change their mind. In many cases it just does the opposite. It's important to exercise spiritual discernment. Who cares? The US dollar could be printed with an embossed image of George H.W. Bush puking on the Japanese Prime Minister's lap, with a watermark of goatsy that only shows in UV light, and I couldn't care less as long as it spends like money. Edit, wrong president. You're thinking of George H.W. Bush. I'd prefer to have e pluribus back. Religion is just an adult version of Santa Claus. R/M14 atheist deep. In this moment, I am euphoric. Not because of any phony God's blessings. But because, I am enlightened by my intelligence. Absolutely. One day when you were a kid, you asked your parents if Santa was real and they told you number. And you believed them. If you asked them if God was real, and they told you no, you would have believed them just as easily. Problem is, when they were kids no one told them God wasn't real. So they just went on believing it. Same thing with their parents and on it went. Childhood indoctrination. It's religion's best chance to get people to believe the horse shit they shovel. One day when you were a kid, you asked your parents if Santa was real and they told you number. I like the method where when they ask you if he's real you don't say yes or no, but, well, you're going to have to figure that one out on your own. It's not a big thing and they'll eventually discover some evidence that it's actually mom and dad, but it will be more of an aha. I figured it out moment rather than a mom and dad were lying to me all this time realizatio. Plus it stimulates a bit of curiosity to discover the truth. That's a good exercise for young kids. It's also pretty sad because Christians are all about their second life in heaven and are so focused on that they stop caring about the first one. Little do they know there isn't another bus coming. I do not care at all. Right, doubt most people even know where it is on the bill. Most don't even use cash anymore. Mayo. Wasn't there before 1955, just remove it. Your banknotes also used to say redeemable in gold. And the government transitioned to fiat currency illegally. In God We Trust violates the Establishment Clause blatantly. And the only reason it wasn't ruled as such is because the court couldn't separate their personal religious belief from the ruling. One is constitutional, the other is not. Not true. In God We Trust has been on US coins since the 1800s. Bring back the good old days. Yeah. Make America great again. Didn't Christ preach against greed? The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Not just money. Yep, he had a lot to say about that. So many issues in this country and MFs worrying about that. I mean, one of the big problems is religious people thinking they have a right to insert their religious beliefs into government. And having In God We Trust on the money is one of many reasons they think that's acceptable. They do though. The Constitution only forbids the church and state being connected. It doesn't forbid voters from electing representatives that appeal to their religious values. Prohibition was literally a Christian movement, for example. Oh, and it's going to get worse. Lauren Boebert just got elected in Colorado, and I quote her. The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. I think it's a bigger issue than you think. Plus Roe v. Wade was overturned because of religious nut jobs. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of that coach praying on the field, something the lower courts rejected and something past SCOTUS have rejected. Then there's the whole Christian flag thing in Boston they ruled in favor of. They are ruling in favor of virtually all religious liberties. This place is going to become Gilead from The Handmaid's Tale. The separation of church and state was a pretty big thing, yet religion is everywhere. You're joking, right? The people who think that having that shit on our money is appropriate are half of our fucking problem.